You probably read the title of the video and you probably said, yeah, I will believe it when I see it. But I want you guys to realize exactly what just happened in this market today. It was a very significant day. We should all be paying attention to days like today because it doesn't just impact crypto. It impacts our, potential new mortgage rates. It impacts the interest that we pay on borrowed money. It doesn't even have to be, mortgage payments. It could be anything around debt. So when we think about days like today, yes, it's very important for crypto prices. Yes, it's very important for liquidity around crypto. But more importantly, it's extremely crucial to focus on for everyday life. Now, as you guys can see on the daily view here, we are in a sea of green. Yes, some of these gains are not insane. They're not crazy, but this is a very good start for the big bounce to happen in the altcoin market. Looking at the weekly, again, we still have some very shallow gains here on a lot of the altcoins that we love, like HBAR up 3.5%, XLM up 2.7%, XRP up 3.3%. However, there is also still some very good outliers here that are up significantly in the last week. And if you are worried about your altcoin not really moving in the last 7 days, I want you guys to understand that this is just the start for altcoins to break out and potentially have a crazy new run to new all-time highs. Now, from the title of this video, yes, the Federal Reserve is about to really cause all of these prices. We're not just talking about, specific altcoins. No, it's every single piece of this market that will hit new all-time highs. Now, not every altcoin will make new all-time highs. I want you guys to understand that. But we should see a new all-time high on the total 3. Others should also make a new all-time high. So this will carry everything higher on the charts. Most altcoins should make new all-time highs. And this is going to be a very exciting time. Now, just taking a quick look at the market itself, Bitcoin 117.7K, Ethereum 4,600 plus, XRP back to $3.10. The main thing to focus on here is Bitcoin. Up 1+% on the daily, up 3% on the weekly. I know it doesn't seem like much, but hey, almost 118K on Bitcoin. This is almost a complete retracement off of the lows back to its previous highs. This is extremely exciting to see. But on top of all of this, right? What did the Fed do today? Well, by now, yes, we all know that we saw the Fed cut rates by 25 BPS. This is the first rate cut of the year. Now, there's a median projection that is showing 50 BPS in additional rate cuts for 2025. It could be as simple as 2 more 25 BPS rate cuts. However, I still think that we get something very interesting, which is a 50 BPS rate cut in October and another one in December. This would be a difference of 1.25%. Now, does this happen? We don't know, right? I'm making a guess here. It could be as simple as, like I said, a 25 BPS rate cut, in October and December, just to follow what we did in September. But the main thing to focus on here is we are now starting to see a complete unalignment at the Fed. Because going over these next few ones, we have Governor Moran dissents in favor of 50 BPS cut today. Fed says downside risks to employment have risen. 6 Fed officials see no more rate cuts in 2025. However, 9 Fed officials see 2 additional rate cuts in 2025. Now, the Fed is 100% shifting their focus to the labor market. They do not care about inflation at this point, which is proof of why we got the rate cut today, because, CPI data has been showing us that inflation is back and it's most likely going to increase. Big shocker, right? The M2 supply is expanding to the upside at the same exact time that inflation is now rising. Who would have known? But again, the fact that the Fed is shifting their focus back to the labor market shows us that we will most likely see 2 additional rate cuts by the end of this year. Now, the Fed is 100% disconnected here, right? Yeah, there's so much chaos happening at the Fed where you have 6 officials seeing no more rate cuts, but then you also have 9 seeing 2 additional rate cuts. It just goes to show you that they're not organized, they're not locked in together. It's a complete disconnection. But again, this shows us that there is chaos brewing. Now, the main thing to focus on here is we make our money, we take our profits, and I still think that we have moonbags. I still think that we invest into gold, silver, things like that, because I do think that 2026 is going to be a chaotic ride. I also think that it's going to be a roller coaster around some of these markets. But the main thing that we're looking at is the short term. The short term is extremely bullish. And if we're looking at the crypto market today, we're back to $4+ trillion. We are now at those previous highs. 4.09 trillion. Fear and greed back to 51. Altcoin season index 73 out of 100. Again, this is a very, very strong bounce in the market. We're almost back to those all-time highs on the market cap of crypto. The fear and greed is bouncing back in a huge way. We're still at 51, even though the market is bouncing in a very strong way. I wouldn't be surprised if this started to reach back up into that greed level. But this goes to show us that we still have a lot of fuel here for the market to pump higher, regardless of how the sentiment feels out there, because we're still in a neutral territory, even though we should be pretty bullish here. Also, the altcoin season index. Yes, altcoins are still showing tremendous strength against Bitcoin, which is why I still think that we need to focus on the altcoin side of the market, and we should still be buying altcoins that are down or that are pretty boring. Just looking at a few things, the S&P, right? Today, with the news, the S&P started to have an initial dip, right? We had some volatility. We hit like 65.50. We closed out the day at 6,600. The issue here is that we are really starting to see some bearish divergence here. And what I mean by that is, the value of the S&P is starting to continue to go higher. At the same exact time that RSI is starting to trail lower, going off of those previous highs back here in July. The important part about this is that when it comes to stocks, yes, does it benefit us with stocks going higher? 100%. But in the short term, I do think that stocks are going to get a little bit boring. I think that we have a deeper pullback, and then we start to trail a little bit until we start to have a much larger bounce on the S&P. I do think that we will hit 7,000 plus by the end of this year, but I do want to see the S&P get pretty boring here. I want to see it have, a sell-off and then chop sideways before it has a return back to highs. The reason why I say this is because during this time, and I know that you guys probably watched my video from the other day, during this time, if the S&P is going to start to get boring, we should start to see the crypto market expanding to the upside. We are about 3 days and 21 hours away from a weekly candle close here. The most important part about this, right, is that we're breaking over all of that resistance from August, even though we had this strong wick to $4.17 trillion. We're now breaking over those highs that we closed out the week on, and this will be a higher time frame close at a new all-time high, essentially. And this will lead to the total going insane, expanding to the upside even more. Now, it's perfect that the stock market is starting to weaken here at a time where the total is starting to get a lot more strength. Because while the S&P, and I don't think that the S&P is going to sell off like crazy, no, while the S&P has a slight pullback, very similar to crypto, we should start to chop a little bit, get a little bit more boring. During this time, the total should continue to expand to the upside. And I know that, these drawings look horrible, but, that's exactly what we should start to see on these charts. So the S&P still pretty good, right? We'll still figure when it comes to the end of the year, we should still really complete a push to $7,000 by the end of this year. And what aligns with this is the Fed cutting rates, because we have over here from bar chart, when the Fed cuts interest rates within 2% of the stock market all-time highs, the S&P 500 has gone on to finish higher over the next 12 months, 20 out of 20 times. This is a 100% hit rate. Now you might say, well, is this time different? Well, if we would have bet on that one of those 20 times in the last, when we think about this, right, like this has been ongoing since the 80s. Okay, this isn't like, oh, in the last, couple years. No, this has been going on since the 80s. 20 out of 20 times when the Fed has cut interest rates within 2% of stock market all-time highs, it has gone on to finish higher over the next 12 months, which is exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to the S&P still performing very well. But we should have a sell-off. We should have a pullback. We should have some chop while RSI completely resets. Okay? Have it reset around 50 or so while the stock market just chops down into the mid 6,000 region. Then, while this starts to build back a bit, the price of the S&P should start to trail back to the upside. This would be very healthy price action. It would support crypto as well, because while all of the hype around the S&P starts to wear away, we should start to see the hype around crypto return in a big way. Now, Bitcoin looks very good here. I just want to go over a few things here before we get into the XRP price chart, which, yes, I do have open. Bitcoin itself just recently broke over major resistance that we formed back here in, it was kind of the start of, well, I should say the end of last week, the start of this week. We finally broke over this. And the good thing about it is that we flipped that resistance into support as well over the last couple daily candles. Now, the main thing about this is we are seeing a strong impulsive daily candle. We are at 117.8K. We are now flipping the midline, and we are also flipping that high going back to August 22nd, which was right around 116.9K. Biggest thing to focus on is the next few levels, which is 120K and then our previous high. We should start to create a big push back to this level. Even if we have a big push to 120K and we have a sell-off and we chop a little bit and then we have a big break above this, start to flip this into support, and then we continue higher. Listen, I don't care how we get there. That would be healthy price action, but the main thing that I want to see here is a retest of 120K, a break over it, and then carve out that path to a new all-time high on Bitcoin. The second that a new all-time high on Bitcoin happens, we should start to see the entire market really wake up in a big way. Ethereum should start to have a big push back to its previous all-time highs as well. And the main thing that I'm looking at is breaking over that 2021 all-time high on the weekly. But this thing should start to have a much larger expansion to the upside. We should start to target those highs from the 12th, and then we should also target those highs from back in August as well. So main thing for Ethereum, I want to see 4,800 being broken on Ethereum, and then that could take us back to 5,000 plus on Ethereum, which will be a very big move. And then, of course, yes, last but not least, XRP. I know that I saved the charts until the end. It is for a reason, okay? When it comes to XRP, we just had a daily push above the moving average on the RSI back in the beginning of the month. Since then, we are up in a big way. if we're just looking at this, and I know that a lot of you will say there's no way that this is a big way, we don't care about these types of gains. Guys, XRP is still up about 11.5% from where we are currently trading, and it recently did push 14+%. I understand it's not our 100+% gains or 200+% gains, but this is a very good start. This is a very good impulse. This is a very good sign of strength on XRP. Now, the best part about this is on this trend line, we have now flipped this for the first time. And we also, and I circled this, we also just had a retest of it with a strong impulsive move of 3 daily candles over this. Yes, we still need to get a daily close over this $3 and almost 13-cent region. And after that, we have 2 more levels of interest. $3.32 and then $3.56, almost 57 cents. These are the 2 biggest closes that I'm looking at with XRP. I want to see a daily candle close over both of these levels. This would put us on a path to $4 plus. And when it comes to the entire altcoin market, yes, the entire altcoin market is also looking very good here. Just looking at the total 3, this is the altcoin market. This is excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. We are now peaking on the weekly. You guys probably remember me making a video last week talking about the weekly candle close, how we were 20 hours away from it. Yes, we are 3 days, 21 hours away right now. If we have a close on this chart above 1.13 trillion on the weekly, this will be the biggest signal of altcoins going to new all-time highs, going insane. This will also be alt season, right? We should start to see alt season really hit the market within, a very short amount of time after we get that weekly close. So the main thing that I want you guys to understand here, and the main thing that I want you guys to focus on is, yes, we just saw one of the biggest announcements around crypto, in a very long time that will impact the prices, impact, easy money, impact money itself, right? Borrowing cost, the interest rates on borrowing money, all of that improving will improve liquidity in this market. Now, the big question is, how long does that remain sustainable? Well, the main thing that we're looking at is, really kind of coming back to that question around the end of this year into 2026. But I do think that we get 2 additional rate cuts this year. I think that will wrap up 2025. By the end of this year, we should also be trading at new all-time highs for Bitcoin, for XRP, for the entire market, for the altcoin market. And then we should be really kind of I would say we should flip cautious going into 2026. But with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, this has been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.